So, thank you, Britt. Thank you, Sandra, for bringing me here. Thank you, Marianne, for your beautiful song, and for Doyle for playing. And for this community, who I've met some of you, both Friday and Saturday. I feel the creative spirit, and a particular musical creative spirit, that's alive in Unity of New York. Though I've been to many Unity churches in America and other countries, there's something about the creative spirit here that's unique. You know that already. I just had to say it. I feel at home in that. Because for me, life has been so much about the creative spirit. It's always calling. It's calling me, it's calling you. And in a way, it doesn't matter how the shape it takes, what form it takes. What's important is that we listen, we hear it, and we respond as our temperament, as our being calls us forward. To give a name to the title of the great song in you. What is this great song? I've used this name for many years as a kind of a signal of something that is beyond words, beyond names. I had the fortune of bringing music into hospice for many years. And when I was there, I was offered to sing, create songs in the moment with people as they're dying, and their families and the caregivers. And what I found is not only was it had an effect for them, but it had a deep effect for me. Sometimes I come into a room and, I come in with the intention, I've got my guitar, and I'm going to come and sing a song. And then, no, it's like put the guitar down and just be in the silence. In the sacred silence of the space of opening to that which we do not know. It's opening to the mystery of what's coming. And just as the person who is dying was opening to the mystery, so I realized that's my role too. I'm here to open to the mystery and to allow something to come through if it was meant to. And then usually by the end of the time there, I'd pick up the guitar and a new song would be born. And I'd record it and leave the recording with the family. After doing this for some years, I began feeling, well, there's something in these songs that might be helpful for others beyond this one person. And as I began collecting the songs and going towards recording them, I remember speaking to Ram Das. Do any of you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he'd been in my heart, and we had a communication. And I told him what was happening, this gathering of songs. And he said, well, Michael, remember, it's not the person who is dying who is needing this music, because they already hear it. They're already listening to the great song. They're returning home to the great song. But the ones who are sitting around, seeing their loved one change or move on, they're the ones needing it. They're the ones needing it most. Because maybe they're not hearing that song inside yet. It doesn't mean it's not singing inside them, or the music is inside them, but maybe they're not hearing it yet. And so for you, your job is to bring something to those who are not yet in that state of leaving, to bring something to them that reminds them of their connection right now. great song. That it's never left us. It was with us when we came in, and it's with us when we go out. And it was like a blessing then to know that that was my mission, that was my purpose, if you will, or certainly a central part of my purpose was to be in touch with this great song inside of me, and then in any way I could to remind others of the great song in them. And furthermore, I realized that it wasn't always a song. That calling it the great song was just to give a name to something that is beyond words, because it could take many shapes. For someone it might be the visual arts, it might come out in that way, or it might come out in dance, or it might come out simply in loving another being. And certainly it's coming out through every lullaby that is sung to every child. So sometimes we can think, oh, the great song is about a great song. So when I began the film In Search of the Great Song, I would begin by interviewing people on the streets of the city and say, what's the great song for you? And they would say, oh, yeah, well, I remember one man said, Summertime. People would give me names of songs that was their favorite song, which is, of course, a fitting way to respond to the question. But I was looking for something even more. I was looking for what is beyond that single song that touches your heart so deeply. It's in that song, but what's behind it? What's deeper than that? And that question continued, and it went on for years, filming people around the world. And in fact, due to Sandra's vision, that film was shown here, I believe, wasn't it?
Yes.
In Search of the Great Song, which came out in 2016. It was shown here last year.
Yes, December.
And it became a collection, like almost a rosary of interviews of scientists and indigenous elders and artists and educators around the world responding to the question, what is the great song for you? It takes many It was so beautiful to be with beings, often very deep, spiritual, high beings. Sometimes people just so-called normal in their educations and their disciplines, but all with a response to what is the great song for me, for them, for us. And so that's a question I leave with you as well. If you just sit with that, what might the great song be for me? There's a beautiful Benedictine monk named Brother David Steindl-Rast, who's written many books on gratitude. And I was with him in Italy and asked the question of him, and he said, there's only one song, and it's the great song. And it comes from before we were born and after we die, and it's coming through all the animals, and it's coming through all the people. And it's always bringing us home. It's always reminding us of who we are and where we come from and why we're here. Each of us has a story to tell. Each of us has a story, our journey in this life of, if we looked at how did we come to the great song for us? When did we first remember it? And I can say something in my life that I remember as a young person. I played clarinet in the orchestra in elementary school for years. And the thing about playing clarinet, it's a wonderful instrument, but it's hard to sing. It never occurred to me, but it's just hard to sing. And so it was was when I was 13. I remember setting the clarinet down and picking up my mother's guitar and a silver tone from Sears, I think it was. And the thing is, I'm left-handed, so immediately I turned the strings around. And of course, when she came home that afternoon, she said, my guitar. And she says, well, it was the beginning of his career and the end of mine. But she enjoyed my playing the guitar left-handed. And so I kept playing and playing. And I remember the day where I went to high school, and I just knew I was complete with this form of education. So I brought the guitar to school and I started playing a chant in the hallway. It was a chant about reincarnation. And the kids came out of the classrooms and we were sitting in the hallway doing a chant like we did Friday night. But the principal of the school came. He said, what's happening here? And he sent the kids back and he says, you come with me. So I went to the office with the principal. And he says, you realize you can't do this. You were upsetting the order of things, the way things should be. And I said, well, actually, I've come to disrupt the order. What am I talking about? He says, I said, I remember this part of what I said. If you find yourself in quicksand, it's your moral imperative to get out of the quicksand. He said, what are you doing? And I said, I've appreciated all that you've done for me, but today I'm leaving. He said, well, you can't leave. You're in high school. This is what you're supposed to be. If you leave, you're a dropout. I said, call it what you will, but I go today. So I left. I went home, and in the evening, my father comes home from work. We're in Washington, D.C., and he's working on Capitol Hill, and so it's very much the establishment. And he's driving a little motor scooter. He comes home. He comes to me, how was your day at school, Michael? I said, well, Dad, today I dropped out. And his response was significant because he said, he could have said anything, but instead he says, well, what are you going to do with yourself?
Wow.
What are you doing? And I said, well, for me, guitar is the thing. I need to focus on my guitar. He says, well, you're going to study guitar hours a day. I'm going to get you the best teacher in Washington, D.C., and you're going to study guitar. Wow.
Hey, Daddy.
And I did. That's what I did. And then after some time, I discovered there was a school in California which was very experimental. And I wrote to them, and they said, well, it's $2,000 to come here. And I said to my dad, it's $2,000. He says, sorry. I wrote back to them, and I said, look, I can teach guitar to everyone there. They said, $1,000. Dad said, $1,000, okay.
Wow.
So I ended up my senior year in high school in this experimental school in the mountains of Santa Cruz. Neil Young lived next door. Minister Fuller came and made geodesic domes, and it was quite a place to be. And of course, the yoga went on there, and I got into yoga there. But the thing is that my father always would say, guitar is your path, but this singing thing, you really should use. You won't get anywhere with the singing. And so, dutifully, I didn't listen to that part of the teaching and continued to sing and chant. And every year we bring a new album home, and he listened and he'd come out and said, no, you're still singing and you're doing these spiritual songs. This is not, if you're going to do songs, they can't be these spiritual songs. But singing and creating spiritual songs. And then, and this I told yesterday in the workshop, that it came that he was dying. I went to see him, brought out my guitar, played, and then I began singing. I couldn't stop. And he began crying, and this is the first time of his crying. The only other time was when John F. Kennedy's body was driven by us in Washington, D.C. on the way to the hospital. And he said, Michael, now I know why you've been singing all your life. You've been loving people through your voice. And when he said this, there was two things. One, it was like a healing in me to hear him say this, because that was new. But also, it was knowing there was another part to that, the reality of that for me, which is that it wasn't loving other people, I was loving me the whole time with my voice, in a way soothing me, accepting me, honoring who I am in my voice. And then I realized when I'm loving me, that love can extend, it can permeate, and others can feel love and can feel love for themselves in that. And I think that's perhaps the message of today, from me to you, is that when you are involved in something you love, whatever that is, it can be a musical, creative actor, it can be anything, but when you are deeply involved, immersed in that which you love, you are simultaneously loving yourself. And that love is for that thing which you do, but it's for who is doing it, it's for you. And anyone who witnesses you in that state of being true to yourself and loving that which you do and who you are will pick up that vibe, will pick it up and breathe it in and take it for them, and maybe it inspires them in some way. We never know. We have no control over how this touches others. All we can do is be true to that which is within us, the great song within us. Be true to that, carry it through as long as we're here on the earth, and whatever blessing, whatever gift it might bring to others, that's a blessing beyond our control, and we give thanks for that always. So I thank you.